We are in Genesis chapter 12. And go ahead, Sherry.
The Lord had said to Abram, "Leave your native country, your relatives, and your father's family, and go to the land that I will show you. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make you famous, and you will be a blessing to others. I will bless those who bless you, and curse those who treat you with contempt. All the families on earth will be blessed through you."
All right. Mom, can you read the next three, please?
Is it me?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, 4
So
to 6.
so Abram departed as the Lord had spoken to him. And Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Then Abram took Sarai, his wife, and Lot, his brother's son, and all the possessions that they had gathered, and the people whom they had acquired in Haran, and they departed to go to the land of Canaan. So they came to the land of Canaan. Abram passed through the land to the place of Shechem, as far as to the terebinth tree of Moreh, and the Canaanites were then in the land.
All right. Todd?
Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your descendants I will give this land." And there he built an altar to the Lord, who had appeared to him. And he moved from there to the mountain east of Bethel, on the east, on the name of the Lord. So Abram journeyed, going on still toward the south.
All right. Julian, Fred?
At the time, a severe famine struck the land of Canaan, forcing Abram to go down to Egypt, where he lived as a foreigner. As he was approaching the border of Egypt, Abram said to his wife Sarai, "Look, you are a very beautiful woman. When the Egyptians see you, they will say this, they will say, 'This is his wife. Let's kill him, then we can have her.'
So please tell them you are my sister. Then they will spare my life and treat me well because of their interest in you." And sure enough, when Abram arrived in Egypt, everyone noticed Sarai's beauty. When the palace officials saw her, they sang her praises to Pharaoh, their king, and Sarai was taken into his palace.
All right. Go ahead, honey. Just finish it up.
The king was kind to Abram because he thought Abram was her brother. He gave Abram sheep, cattle, male and female donkeys, male and female servants, and camels. But the Lord sent terrible diseases on the king and all the people in his house because of Abram's wife Sarai. So the king sent for Abram and said, "What have you done to me? Why didn't you tell me Sarai was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister, so that I made her my wife? Now here is your wife. Take her and leave." Then the king commanded his men to make Abram leave Egypt. So Abram and his wife left with everything they owned.
All right. Anything pop out in this chapter?
How old was Sarai?
Wasn't she like 70?
That's a good question.
I think he was 75 when he left Ur, and so Sarah must have been 65.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
I thought it actually gave her age, but
I'll go with that. Yeah. That's pretty cool. 65 years old and you're still beautiful.
Mhm.
One of the things that you begin to see the language that God inspired Moses to give you know, at the very beginning, God says, be fruitful and multiply. And in verse 12, I'm sorry, in chapter 12, he then tells Abram that he's going to make him into a great nation. So here we begin to see God's plan of, even in a sinful place, his plan was to have Abram be fruitful and multiply. But the purpose in multiplying is not just for the sake of multiplying, but to be a blessing. One of the things you will find throughout the Old Testament especially, and a lot more refined in the New Testament, or just said a little bit differently, is this whole thing about being a blessing. And so when we talk about church growth, when we talk about family growth, when we talk about spiritual growth, any kind of growth, it really is foundational on being a blessing. Because obviously, one of the things that we've also found in Genesis chapter 3 is that God is going to have his seed, or the woman is going to have his seed, which is God is going to have his children, and then the devil is also going to have his seed, or the devil is going to have his followers or his children. And the devil obviously will make sure that his children are destructive, and then God will make sure that his children are the one that's a blessing. And so this battle will be found throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament. And so even at the very beginning of our walk with God, this should be ingrained in our minds that God called us to be a blessing. There's a reason for as soon as we give ourselves to God, we have an incredible purpose, because we are fighting. We're part of a movement. We're part of a family that fights the curses that sin brings to the world. And we do it by being a blessing.
On verse 12:4, it
Mhm.
actually said Abram was 75 years old. And
There
we
you
know
go.
she's 10 years younger.
Yeah, everybody hear that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Verse 4, it says he was 75, so she would have been 65. She was 10 years younger.
You wonder how the Pharaoh associated the plagues with Sarah. You know, did the Holy Spirit speak to him, or, you know, or maybe.
Well, I know one of the
different.
one of the things back then, everybody was really superstitious. So anything wrong that happens, they're always wondering, hey, what's the gods doing?
Yeah.
Even with Jonah, you know, a storm wasn't just, you know, two movement. What is that again? Two fronts getting together. To them is like, something's wrong. The gods are angry at us, you know. And so they started casting lots on which person is angering the gods, and they were right on.
Wow.
I wonder what happens when they're totally off, you know, because they can't be right all the time when it comes to that. But it seems to me that God actually uses people's superstitions even to get through to them.
Yeah. I think it's incredible that Pharaoh actually, I mean, of course, maybe it was because of the plagues, that he actually had some morals about, well, you know, you almost made me marry her, and I was intending to marry her. And so at least he had scruples enough to know that that was wrong, but maybe it was the plagues that scared him.
Right. And you also begin to see how people can be really stubborn, because if I'm the Pharaoh, I'm like, how can I get your God to do this to me? You know, that when somebody does something wrong to me, he curses them with plagues. And so I think because back in Mesopotamia, one of the things that was coming up at this point was what they would call a personal god. There'd be 1,000 gods all over the place, but each family would have a specific god that people would believe was taking care of them. That's just kind of the mindset that most pagan nations had, and Abram's family also had it. When Joshua talks to his people, this also comes up, that their people, or even the Israelites, were worshiping other gods. Not that they were abandoning Israel's God, it's just that they think, well, the more the gods, the better, so to speak. And here we might be able to see also that maybe Pharaoh was like, yeah, your God has something against my personal God, and obviously my God can't do anything to your God, but it's not like I want to abandon my God. It is pretty tough, though. I don't know how Abram really comes out on this. I don't even know how Sarah feels after this. Hey, can you please tell him you're my sister, right? And then when Pharaoh marries her, what kind of thoughts go through both Abram and Sarah? I don't know what conversation they had even on their way out of Egypt.
Might have been a quiet ride for a while.
I would think so. I would think so. And Sarah is actually brought out in these stories as a very strong woman, at least compared to some people, to a point where he would actually tell Abram, look, you need to go with my concubine, or you need to help God out a little bit. And Abram will just follow. And then afterwards says, no, you got to get rid of the concubine. And then Abram would just follow. But on this instance, she follows Abram and says, all right, I guess I'm your sister. And then all of a sudden, everything just starts spiraling out of control. And then God has to come in. I believe that is something that God has done in my life continuously, where, I'd have this moments of, yeah, I think I need to help God out a little bit. And then things just kind of go downhill. God comes in and goes, all right, I need to get you out. You're just digging yourself too much into a hole. And I know for me, my story is this happens to everyone whom God, who accepts God's leadership in their life. Because even if Abraham, who's the father of faith, had those faith lapses, if I can even call it that, those lapses, those moments where he just kind of had this brain cramp and saying, yeah, I can't really believe God at this point. God is not as strong as this Egyptian king. And it's still at those moments, though, that God proves that he is. And I believe many times when we come to these moments of lack of faith, it is those moments that we see God's mercy as he digs us out of the hole. Or if we're going to look at the metaphor or the story of the disciples, this is where, he holds out his hand as Peter's drowning and says, oh, you little faith. You focused way too much on the waves and you didn't focus on me. And you were walking for a while already. And I think many times we also get to that point.
I kind of find it ironic that the Pharaoh had no clue what was what. And yet he's the one that suffered all the disasters. Whereas Abram walks away scot-free. I think
Right.
something's not right there. We don't know something. I mean, there's something out there that we haven't been told yet, I would think. That just doesn't make sense.
Well, I think this was God's way of telling Pharaoh, you got to get rid of your gods. I'm so much more powerful than them. Because the other Pharaoh during the Exodus had the same thing. It took him 10 plagues and he still didn't get it. And God used those plagues not just to punish him, but to show him that I am so much more powerful than any of your gods, that I'm really the real God. And I believe that on this end, on this example, he let it happen as well. He allowed all this craziness to happen. He gives the plagues, and then Pharaoh just says, "Yeah, just get out of here. I don't want to mess with my gods. I don't want to change my life." But for me, the lesson was there. I'm like, why would you serve gods? Why would you sacrifice to gods who would give you plagues when it's his follower that made the mistake? You didn't make a mistake, kind of like what you said. He was totally ignorant of what was happening. But again, here you see God trying to reach out to pagan people, that if they would only be open to what he would have to say, they would have had a chance of knowing him just as much as Abraham did. All right. Anything else? And in the end, I think what's funny, in the end, Abraham got a whole bunch of sheep and goats and even servants out of this whole deal. Like, hey, even when you're wrong, you're right if you're going with God, I guess is what I'm saying. Oh, my lads. All right. I'm going to turn into this. Thank you for joining us at our prayer and Bible study session as we journey through the Bible one chapter at a time. We realize that you might have some questions or comments on the things that we discussed today. And if you do, please feel free to fill out the form below. Also, if you would like to have your own Bible, please fill out the form below and we will get back to you as soon as we possibly can. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you next time at our prayer and Bible study session.